Hey everybody, my name is Sam from Temples of Silence Studios, and welcome to this brief walkthrough for the beta version of DelayTroll. Now, for those of you who don't already know, DelayTroll is a multi-tap delay plugin. Currently there are up to 64 delay taps, each with their own individual playback level, pitch, EQ, and pan. In addition to that, there are also 6 modulatable parameters, a unique LFO designer, and some other unique GUI features I'll go over throughout the video. I'm making this video so that beta testers have something that can give them a sense of how to use DelayTroll and what it's good for. I promise when DelayTroll is ready for release, I'll come up with something more professional, but for now, this is just me recording something in my room to hold us over until then. So in this video, we are going to cover 3 real-world use cases for the plugin. First, we're going to look at what I'm calling a zipper effect. That's going to be applied to vocals. Second, we're going to take a look at a pretty classic use case for delay plugins, and that's making something sound bigger. In this case, a synth sound. And finally, we're going to take a pad and use DelayTroll's modulation features to add some texture to it. Let's move over to Logic and take a look at our first use case. So here we have a vocal track and a beat to back it up. Let's take a listen to what it sounds like without adding in DelayTroll.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
Clearly, the vocal track has been doubled and treated already. But let's say we wanted to do something a little more creative with this track to make it stand out a little more. Well, one of my favorite and most unique sounding effects you can do with DelayTroll is a quote zipper effect. And I think that will work nicely here. So let's add in DelayTroll as a plugin to this track. Here we go. And let's start with taking a brief look at the GUI. The first thing I'm going to draw your attention to is the min and the max gears. These control the delay times of the first tap and the last tap respectively, and their values are displayed in these boxes here and here. I'm going to leave the min time at 0, but set the max time to about 900. There we go. Close enough. Okay, we've set the first and the last delay time, but what about the rest of the taps? Well, instead of setting the delay times of each tap individually, DelayTroll gives you a couple of methods that allow you to distribute the delay taps all at once. What method you choose to control the delay times of the taps can be selected from the control dropdown here. For now, we are going to stick with gravity, which utilizes this gear with the same name here. As you can see, it pulls the taps forwards and backwards in time in such a way that they get denser towards the min time or the max time. Let's have a listen to what our vocal samples sound like with the taps evenly spread. I'm going to move the GUI down and mute the beat so we can just hear the vocals. Let's have a listen. Alright, now let's see what our sample sounds like when the delays get denser towards the last tap. Move this back down. Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Okay, so notice that even though our mix is set to 100% wet, because our first tap has a delay time of 0 milliseconds, that tap is functionally similar to a dry signal in this scenario. For this effect, I don't want any dry signal, so I'm going to select level from the display tab, and we're going to set the level of our taps. Now if I select manual from the control dropdown, I can individually set the level of each tap, but that's an inelegant solution. I'd much rather set a curve I want the tap's playback level to adhere to, and I can do so by using the Bezier curve. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. A Bezier curve is a powerful tool used throughout DelayTroll to efficiently set the various attributes of each tap as a group rather than having to set each one individually. To manipulate a Bezier curve, simply click and hold on one of the control nodes and drag it to the desired position. If you need more control nodes, simply click where you would like that control node to appear. And conversely, to get rid of a control node, just double-click that node. All Bezier curves must have at least 4 nodes, and the first and the last node cannot be deleted. For the zipper effect, we're going to make a somewhat exponential curve that increases the level of the taps as they get denser towards the end. Let's have a listen to what our effect sounds like with this change. Now we start to hear why I've been calling this style of effect a zipper effect. But to really sell it, we need more taps. So I'm going to adjust the delay gear here till we have 28 delays. Okay, let's have another listen. Alright, I'm happy with that. The vocals now have a unique, zippy sound to them, which is what I was going for. But there's a problem. Because we've delayed our signal, it will no longer be in sync with the accompanying beat. To deal with this, we simply go back to the time tab and switch our control method from gravity to BPM sync. This method is essentially the same as gravity, however our min and max times are set to musical times instead of milliseconds. Once we have selected BPM sync, you can now select how much you want the bar to be divided by selecting a value from the quantization dropdown. We are going to set it to 1/2, so our max delay time occurs at half a bar. Then I'm going to move the clip back half a bar so that everything syncs up. Let's have a listen. Put the beat back on. Finally, I want to draw your attention to the switch up here next to the output meter. This is the soft clipper bypass. Because Delaytrol utilizes so many delays, it's easy to go into the red with it. So to make it easier to use, everything passes through an A-tan style soft clipper that compresses the signal. Although I don't really hear it too much in this case, it can make things sound a bit crunchy. So it's good practice once you have everything set the way you want it to sound, to go ahead and bypass the soft clipper. And turn the input gain down if need be. Let's have one last listen. Excellent. Let's go ahead and save this as a user preset by clicking on the save icon here. I'm going to call this Get Up Zipper and hit save. To load a preset, just click on this drop-down menu here and select one from this list. To delete a user preset, just click on the trash icon and you'll be asked to confirm that you want to delete the current preset. Select OK and that preset is deleted. Speaking of presets, if you're curious about the factory presets, their description and category is in the manual. At the moment, I'm categorizing presets into the following categories. Zippers, like the effect we just made, get denser and louder towards the max delay time. Stutterers are the opposite, starting out loud and then petering out. Bubblers utilize the pitch effect. Verbers use a large number of delays to simulate a reverb effect. Resonators use tightly packed delays to simulate a resonator effect. Sweeps sweep one of the tap's attributes, usually EQ, smoothly from one value to the other. Scramblers utilize modulation in the time domain and generally scramble things. And there are a few that just don't fit any category clearly. Okay, on to our second use case. A fairly standard way to use a delay effect is to combine it with a reverb effect to make whatever you're applying the effect to sound bigger. With Delaytrol, since we have so many delays to work with, we can model our own reverb using a combination of feedback and EQ. Here we have some simple synth chords made with the help of Logic's Alchemy synth. Let's have a listen. I like this as a base to start with, but I want this to have a much bigger sound. So I'm going to load up Delaytrol, and we're going to start with the obverse of the idea we had for the zipper. We're going to set the max time to 1000 milliseconds. Set the gravity gear so that the delays are denser towards the first delay. Then go over to the level tab and make a curve that starts out with the taps being at full intensity, decreasing towards the end, but never quite goes out. Something like that. Okay, let's have another listen. Alright, we're already sounding bigger, but to get that reverb effect, we're going to need to make a couple of adjustments. First, increase the number of delays to 42. Then, set the feedback to 60%. I want to note here that the feedback goes all the way to 200%, so be careful when using it. Let's have another listen. Well, we can definitely start to hear that reverb effect, but I can also hear the effect of the soft clipper crunching our signal down. Before we deal with that, however, let's head over to the EQ tab and make a couple of adjustments there. Here you can see each of the taps distributed over time on the x-axis. Being displayed on the y-axis, you can see the cutoff frequencies for the high-pass and the low-pass filters. The EQ is bypassed by default, so the first thing we are going to do is go ahead and activate the EQs by clicking on the bypass switch. Then I'm going to set this bottom curve so we get the full low end of each of our delays. And then I'm going to set the top curve so that the low pass filter starts completely open but ends up around 600 Hz. Something like that. Now, because it was so crunchy, I'm going to bypass the soft clipper and turn the input gain way down so it sounds a little clearer. Great. Now let's hear it again. That's certainly a lot bigger sounding. Before we move on to the last use case, I just want to demonstrate how playing with the EQ curve can affect the quality of the sound. I'm going to play this again and make some adjustments to the EQ. Pay attention to how it affects the quality of the sound. Yeah, there's a lot of subtlety to be discovered working in the EQ tab for these kinds of use cases. Alright, let's move on to our final use case. In this last use case, I'm going to show you how you can use modulation to add texture to a sound. I have a synth pad prepared here. Let's have a listen to what this sounds like as is. Alright, I'm going to load up Delaytrol, and we are going to start by setting the max time to 1000. Then adjust the gravity gear so that the delays are denser towards the beginning. Increase the number of delays to 26, and then set the feedback to 80%. Next, we're going to head over to the Level tab, and we are going to set a curve that starts out at full intensity, but sharply decreases and stays there. Now, because we set the feedback to 80%, I already know this is going to sound crunchy with the soft clipper on. So as we take another listen to this, I'm going to lower the input gain till it sounds a bit clearer. Then I'm going to bypass the soft clipper. Much better. Now that our basic settings are where we want them, let's move on to modulation. By toggling the eject button, we can reveal and hide the modulation panels. And by selecting the modulation tab, we can choose which kind of modulation we want to work with. We want an LFO for this effect, so I'm going to select that. Here you can see the three main panels of the modulation section: the assign panel, the control panel, and the display panel. Here in the top half of the control panel, we can adjust the rate of our LFO, whether it syncs to your project's BPM, and some different ways to divide the bar if you do choose to sync it to BPM. In the bottom half, we can control the properties of the oscillating wave itself. The type of wave, the period, amplitude, and phase of the wave. We can also add as many additional waves to our LFO as we want. Let's add some noise to this wave. Turn its amplitude up and our sine wave's amplitude down. Something like that. Delay Troll will normalize the LFO so that it never peaks. You can see what the resulting LFO looks like in the display section, as well as set the polarity. We're going to leave it at 50. Here in the Assign panel, you can choose what parameters you want to modulate. We are going to modulate the max time. Note the indicator next to the max time that appears after it is selected, showing us the depth range. You can see the value oscillating within that range. I'm going to turn this down to 9 o'clock. Let's take a listen to what this sounds like now with the modulation. What you're hearing is the quieter taps towards the end, rewinding and fast forwarding along the delay line to adjust to the modulating max time. However, the first tap doesn't rewind or fast forward at all. Again, the first delay is acting as our dry signal in this case. How fast those taps rewind and fast forward is controlled by the smooth gear. Take a listen to how the sound changes as I adjust the smooth gear. I like the idea of the texture morphing over time, from that percolating kind of sound to the more subtle sound we hear when the smooth parameter is set to low. Why don't we modulate that too? Each modulation type has 10 curves or waves that can be independently assigned to different parameters. To switch between them, use the arrow buttons on the right here. Let's assign a Bezier curve to the smooth parameter. First, I'm going to set the smooth parameter to 4%. Then I'm going to set the rate to 0.1 Hz. Let's assign it in the Assign panel. And I'm going to turn the depth down a notch. Note that on Bezier curves, the polarity defaults to 0. Now I'm going to make a curve that starts low and stays there for the first half. Then it's going to quickly rise to the top and kind of fade out towards the end. Something like that. Before we have our final listen, I'm going to move over to the Pan tab and spread this around a bit to get some width going on with our texture. That should work nicely. Great, let's take a listen to what that sounds like. I'll adjust the mix gear so we can get a sense of before and after. Wonderful. I'm happy with that. Well, that's all I have for you today. Hopefully this gives you all a sense of how to use the plugin and its capabilities. We didn't get a chance to go over the pitch view, but it works similarly to the other views. I encourage you to play around with some of the presets. There's a lot of fun sounds this plugin can do that wasn't covered in this video. Before I end this video, I just want to really thank you all for watching and participating in the beta testing of this plugin. I really appreciate the feedback. And speaking of which, once you've had a chance to use the plugin, please take a moment to fill out the feedback survey. And who knows, at this stage, maybe your suggestion will end up in the final version of Delay Troll. Alright, till next time, adios.